6 p.m. in Van, that is in the central region of Cameroon. Good evening, dear televiewers of Equinoxe television. Thank you so much for joining me on today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. First, our major stories. The Anglophone crisis continues to cause havoc in the conflict-hit northwest and southwest regions. Several houses in Barabe and Zebe, that is in Nako subdivision, Dunga Mountain division in the northwest region, have been destroyed in the course of violent confrontations between the military and separatist fighters. The population say, due to the violence, the villages are now deserted. And femicide cases on the rise in Cameroon. A teacher of government bilingual high school Mokolo in the Far North region has been stabbed to death by her husband in the course of a family dispute. Circumstances that led to this tragic scene will be explained in the course of this newscast. And out of our borders, about 200 people have died and 2,000 others severely injured due to violence that sparked in Sudan. The violence that broke out on Saturday was sparked by a disagreement over the integration of the rapid support forces into the military as part of the transition towards civilian rule. Deafening explosions and intense gunfire continue to destroy buildings in the capital, Khartoum. Those were our major stories. The news in full in few seconds. Thank you, dear televiewers, for staying with Equinoxe television. You made the right choice. We'll begin with a sad story coming from the Far North region, where a teacher of government bilingual high school Mokolo, that is in Marwa, has been stabbed to death by a spouse. According to reports, she was stabbed in the course of a family dispute. We have details of this report with Mala Glory.
Suspecting his wife of infidelity, he finally caught her in a hotel room, according to sources. While home, Metrum Wambo, who is a teacher at Catholic School Mbowa in Mokolo, Far North region, was repeatedly stabbed by her angry husband. I heard her screaming, saying her husband is about to kill her. We rushed towards her room and discovered she was in a pool of blood. We then rushed her to the hospital, where she unfortunately gave up the ghost. Neighbors say Wambo and her husband have not been in good terms for a while. We are always together as neighbors, but they often quarrel, such that she once asked for forgiveness from us, the neighbors, because they quarrel almost all night that we can't sleep. After killing his wife, he also stabbed himself to death. Both were transferred to the Mokolo Regional Hospital mortuary, while investigations have been opened in order to establish the exact circumstance that led to the tragic incident.
From the Far North region, we now move to the northwest region, where some villages within Ako subdivision in Dunga Mountain division are yet to benefit from the presidential plan for the reconstruction of the northwest and southwest regions. In villages like Birabe and Zebe, where several houses were razed as a result of confrontations between the military and separatist fighters, it is a deserted village that was noticed. Smart Jikangable paints a picture of how these villages now look like after this violence. Take a listen.
Inhabitants of Berabe and Zebie villages under Ako subdivision in the northwest region of Cameroon still live with the pains of the more than 3 years war that has been disturbing the people of the southwest and northwest regions. At Berabe as well as in Zebie villages, burnt houses are still very visible, with most of its residents without a place to shelter. One of the victims tells Equinoxe TV that he was surprised to return home and find his house burnt after several months in the bush.
That way this problem is start, all will be wrong.
When the crisis started, we all ran away into the bush, but when we were asked to return, we realized everything is down to ashes. I'm stranded with my family and kids, unable to stand up again.
So just they so stranded, me and picking them, just they, the woman them.
Apart from this victim, another who was a businessman in Zebie village is now frankless because of the war.
I began my store.
I had a store with everything inside, but in the heart of the crisis, we all ran into the bush. On my return, my home and the store is no longer available.
Then one now, we see how they don't burn our place.
These two victims have just one word to those in power.
My brother, I don't get anything for talk.
The only thing I will call on the government to do is to find a solution to this problem.
Option, anyhow, they see for do, they do for me. Sorry, don't beg.
I'm begging that everyone who can help me out should do so. It's a neighbor who gave me a room for me and my family to sleep inside.
Where they stayed with my woman and my kid.
Apart from these private structures in ruins, government structures are also down, with a glaring example of the frontier police post in Ako, which has been abandoned in grass. The situation has forced observers to ask questions about the presidential plan for reconstruction in the Anglophone regions.
And those are the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis, which has been ongoing in the conflict-hit northwest and southwest regions for over 6 years now. And on to something else. Many Cameroonians have not stopped questioning what has become of President Paul Biya's Operation Sparrowhawk, targeting embezzlers of state funds. Despite the fact that Cameroon is a state of law, many ministers implicated in visible and detected embezzlement scandals continue to be part of President Paul Biya's administration, a baffling situation to Cameroonians. Innocent Arze reports on some of those acting ministers who are in deep embezzlement scandals. Take a listen.
The COVID Gate and AFCON Gate scandals are still fresh in the minds of Cameroonians. Two affairs implicating the ministries of Public Health and Sports and Physical Education respectively. That of Sports and Physical Education saw the postponement of the AFCON and most especially the non-completion of the AFCON projects. Worst of it all, the abandonment of works at the Olembe Stadium. Despite the repeated assurances of Professor Narcisse Mole Kombi that everything was under control, works were still not progressing before he attributed it to incompetence on the part of the contractors. With regards to the COVID Gate, several ministers were involved in the mismanagement of funds destined for the fight against the pandemic. According to the Supreme Court Audit Chamber on the embezzlement of the COVID funds, the Minister of Scientific Research and Innovation, cited for complicity with Indian partners, embezzled fabulous sums meant for the production of chloroquine. She said was very possible in Cameroon. The Minister of Public Health, also concerned in the COVID Gate, had often indexed his then Secretary of State in charge of epidemics, signatory to the procurement of COVID-19 kits. Another scandal recorded in Cameroon was that surrounding the head of state's mini laptop gifts to university students. The project, which cost 75 billion francs CFA, was a complete fiasco. Redirecting the blame, the Minister of Higher Education defended himself by declaring that there was a mix-up on the side of the former Minister of Communication. Dwelling on the unit price of the mini laptop, its capacity, resistance, the beneficiaries seem to have been deceived. Weeks after they received the head of state's mini laptops, most of them were no longer working to serve the prescribed needs. What baffles Cameroonians is that despite all these embezzlement scandals, all these ministers, including those of finance, the economy, planning and regional development, also in deep embezzlement scandals, are still in government.
And now we talk health. Health officials in Cameroon say they are fast-tracking the universal health coverage to improve on healthcare delivery in the country. During the launching of the initiative in the Littoral region today in Douala, some stakeholders raised concerns about obstacles on registration for Cameroonians in remote areas. Babla Jonathan reports.
The Universal Health Coverage Initiative is already operational in Cameroon. In the Littoral region, it was launched Tuesday. Registration is ongoing on and offline.
We are already started. You can go now online, you register. It is already started. You can share the application in the Play Store, Cameroon Health Coverage, and you go to the www.csu.minsante.com to register yourself. It is Cameroon Health Coverage application. When you take this application in your phone, you can register even you are offline.
Those who do not have access to internet or information and communication technologies in general, those who can't read and or write, will have to wait for mobile teams yet to be deployed, especially in remote parts of the region and the rest of the country.
For the villages, we have a mobile strategy, and we have the staff who went to the village to register the population.
Cameroonians can have access to preventive and promotional health care services free. Pregnant women and newborn babies of up to 42 days in the far north, Adamawa, east and south regions have to disperse 6,000 francs CFA annually for curative services. Children from 0 to 5 years, people living with HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis and river blindness across the country are eligible for free curative services, while kidney failure patients will pay 15,000 francs CFA per year. Meantime, dialysis patients are asking that other illnesses that come along with their health condition, including hypertension, diabetes, obesity, should be taken into consideration.
And now we talk economy. Suspended in 2019 for overrides of violations in the Anglophone regions, Cameroon has begun negotiating its readmission into the African Growth Opportunities Act, AGOA. Cameroon hopes to lessen its debt burden and boost exports through the program. However, experts say Cameroon has not done its homework to optimize benefits from the AGOA program. We have more with Fomi Armstrong Sanda.
The move to be readmitted into the AGOA program is seen by Cameroonian authorities as an absorber of the shock from the COVID-19 and global shocks triggered by the conflict in Ukraine. These shocks have hit Cameroon hard, affecting economic growth and undermining the country's ability to repay debts. The government says this readmission could allow the country to reduce its debt burden by boosting its exports to the United States. But just how much practical homework has been done to optimize Cameroon's benefits from the program is the question we asked an entrepreneur, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, considering his mastery of the AGOA concept.
I would say no, we have not done much. The last time I sent out a small flyer showing that you need 3 elements for systems to work. You need good politics or sound politics, you need good economics and economic principles, and then you need development. When you're talking about development, you mean one of 2 things. You mean physical development of infrastructure. You talk about roads, transportation, internet, electricity, housing, industries, what have you. And then in the part B of development, you are talking of the human capacity development. The human capacity development in all of these things is the most important, and that's where Cameroon has failed. Our human capacities are not really developed. You might say that we have 8 state universities and 420 private universities. We have so many people with doctorates and masters and so on. That's not what we are talking about when it comes to development and industry. We are talking about technology, about skills and so on. If you have a busload of people who cannot transform pineapple into pineapple juice, it will not fit into the AGOA system.
But what then does AGOA want?
What AGOA needs are engineers and technicians who will run the industry, create industries to make things happen. And to have these engineers and technicians and industries, what you need is a proper school system that trains children in these things. But as you very well know, for 60 years we have failed to train our children properly, and our schools have been a sham. Our educational system has been a sham. So in one word, our human capacity index is very, very, very low.
In 2009, the United States kicked Cameroon out of the AGOA program for rights violations by security forces in the restive northwest and southwest English-speaking regions. Dr. Nick regrets that the country lost a lot within the period out of AGOA.
Imagine we have started from day one 15 years ago, how good our children would be now in industry and in manufacturing and many things. And also in international trade, because that's the key. Emergence in 2035, in fact, the foundation of our emergence in 2035 is about industrialization.
Presenting Cameroon's AGOA readmission wish in Washington, D.C., Minister Osman Alamin, Mayor of the Economy, said Cameroon is working hard on all issues raised by U.S. officials in a very transparent and open manner to be able to solve problems.
For me, Armstrong Sander reporting there. According to Le Jour newspaper, at least 15 women have been killed in 52 days in Cameroon. Some of the cases include Eliane Guanyu in her 40s, who was slaughtered at her residence in Goso by thieves who barged into her house. Another case is that of two women aged 21 and 23 who were killed around Garutiem Van last week. Their corpses were discovered on the 9th of March 15 in Guakili. And the same story, we have the cases where another which I can remember was that of on the 25th of March, where the corpse of a 25-year-old girl was discovered at the Mimboman neighborhood in Yaoundé. This is just few of the many cases of violence meted on women, and most of the perpetrators are still on the run. As you heard on news, a woman who is a teacher at Government Bilingual High School in Mokolo was killed by her spouse. Tonight on Talking Point, I'll be receiving a human rights activist. He's equally known as human rights advocate, known as Barrister Tamfo Richard, and he'll be explaining to us the reasons for the rise in cases and what is the way out. Stay with us. Talking Point is up next. As I earlier said, today on Talking Point, I'll be receiving Barrister Tamfo Richard, a human rights advocate. It is a pleasure to be with you today on Talking Point, Barrister.
Well, literally, I think when we talk about femicides, we mean the killing of women or the female gender. And when you talk how recurring it is, I remember that for quite a while now, we have been recording or having information about recurrent deaths of women or the female gender. So I think if I were to go on the statistic basis, I think there is a rise or an increase in the killing of women in Cameroon.
So Barrister, tell me, what accounts for the rise in femicide cases in Cameroon today?
This perception that the male gender is superior to the female gender, and we know that these kind of situations, for example, if the persons are living as a couple, we may have tensions whereby maybe the male gender believes or thinks that he has more rights than the female, and such violences can lead to death. We also have some traditional practices whereby it is believed that the female gender is inferior, and that maybe when there is a kind of violence between on the female gender is at times seen to be an expression of love. And we also know that people are not so much aware about some international instruments like the Maputo Protocol that tries to advocate female rights. So I think to me these are some of there no awareness. These are some of the consequences maybe that could lead to this rise in femicides these days.
As a human rights advocate, what are some of the things you have been doing to curb the rise in cases in Cameroon?
Well, it's not that they're not doing their job well. Maybe they still need to put more efforts, because like I told you, there is the Maputo Protocol on the African women's rights, you know, that which is not maybe so much known by people. So I think they need to increase the sensitization about that. People need to be, the female needs to be educated about her rights. People should understand that the male gender and the female gender have equal rights and equal opportunities. So it should not be seen that the male gender is superior to the female gender. I think if we go on those bases, we just need to maybe accelerate on sensitization. Maybe some of this will want to limit the consequences of these recordings of women being killed on an increased basis, because like I said, the male always believes that he has superior rights over the female gender, and maybe in the course of maybe a violent interaction between them, he may be tempted to maybe harm the other.
There are some men who claim that the actions of some women cause them to be violent. Is that enough reason for them to lay their hands on their wives?
We know that in Cameroon, the government too has its own part, not just the human rights advocates. We know that there is a ministry of women and family. So I think that ministry should be able to sensitize the population as to women's rights. As a right advocates, we do our possible best with the little means available to make sure that we try to educate the masses that women have equal rights as men, especially at times we have land disputes whereby yes, I think this is a high time we call the attention of the head of that ministry that she has not been working. Maybe this program will give a strong echo that she's been silent, she's not seen active, because I believe that it is in her role. I think the responsibility should be shared, because like Cameroon is a state of law, and I don't see why people want to take the laws into their hands. And if we have also a justice system that respects the rules of law, where people will not feel that whenever they have legal issues, they should resort to maybe rendering justice by themselves. So if we had a proper justice system where people feel secure and safe, it will come a long way to curb some of these abuses, and I think that there will be a drop in the violence. You know, Cameroonians are living very tough times. Life is difficult. People are engaging into all sorts of practices because they want to make fast money, and all that coupled together, you understand that if the violence in the rise is simply because the citizens have their responsibility, whereby they don't want to be law-abiding citizens. The government has its responsibility because it is not reassuring its population that justice can be meted on people who commit such atrocities, and people may be tempted to render justice to themselves.
So what's the way out of such a situation?
Yes, the way out is to remobilize the population, is to have seminars to talk about all these rights violations, what are the proper steps to be taken, and what should be forbidden as practices, because if we only sit in the urban cities and we don't communicate so well, the information may only remain here in the urban cities. We have to also go to the grassroots to explain to the population that some of their practices, traditional practices, who go against female rights are not good. We also have to maybe sensitize the population about their rights and obligations, and make sure and explain to them that in a state there is no possibility, or it is strictly forbidden for you to take the laws into your hands. And I think that if we continue on that sensitization, on that education, and also when we have cases that come up where we have such practices, we should see the law acting to punish such persons so that it deters others from committing such atrocities. And I think that if we go by that, I think it's going to reduce this high rate of femicide that we are witnessing.
That was Barrister Tamfo Richard, a human rights advocate, and that's why we put a cap to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Thank you so much for your keen attention. See you tomorrow at 6 p.m. God willing. So long.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.
If you suspect you may have a coronavirus infection, please call your healthcare provider in advance and let them know you